Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome to yet another podcast of Sollu Kaburz, and I'm very delighted and excited to have a professional cricketer on my podcast for the first time. And I'm very glad that it's a woman cricketer because our game has seen enough boy heroes and men heroes in all our history. It's time for women to shine. So I thought this would be very appropriate to start my cricket-related podcast series with a professional woman cricketer, Bhavisha Devchand, joining me all the way from Melbourne, Australia. How are you doing?
Hi, Najeeb. Going well, thanks. Currently in the middle of coronavirus, so we're locked down, but otherwise going very well.
Missing cricket very badly, obviously.
Yeah, definitely missing cricket.
Can you please tell our viewers a little bit about yourself? You're a professional cricketer, and apart from being a professional cricketer, you also are a mentor, coach. And can you just tell a bit about that, please?
Yeah, so um, professional cricket, I'm more like a semi-professional cricketer because we're not all full-time until you pay for your country. So very lucky to be able to get paid any money to play, and it's all a bonus for me. So I don't see it as a job or anything. It's my passion, and because of that, I play and coach a lot of cricket as well, and that's with cricket mentoring, and I also do a little bit on my own. Outside of that, I do a lot of mentoring in the mental game and mindset, and it's sort of helping people think the right way. That helps them both on and off the field.
Right. You play for Perth Scorchers in Women's Big Bash and Western Australia and Gloucestershire County in England, if I'm not wrong. What a beautiful county Gloucestershire is. Did you ever get to explore that, the Cotswolds, the greenery of that county by any chance?
Yeah, it's stunning. Absolutely. I really enjoy it. I used to actually live in Southampton as well, so I used to travel in between the two a fair bit, and that was really good because you did get to get outside of the big cities and explore the green countryside. And it's stunning. It's one of my favourite places.
Right. I was there last summer for the Cricket World Cup in England, so that is when I visited Gloucestershire and the Cotswolds. Western Australia is an entirely opposite place of Gloucestershire, right? It's like that place is like green as hell, and this is Western Australia, hard and rough, rugged terrain, entirely full of desert. Is there something about that place that produces tough cricketers? I mean, I'm very guilty of not knowing enough about women cricketers from Western Australia, but I can take the examples of just Dennis Lilly, Justin Langer, or Mike Hussey. They're from Western Australia. What makes them tough? What makes Western Australians tough?
It's a good question. I think a lot of Western Australia, although the actual state is desert and hot and rugged environments, majority of cricketers are from Perth, where it's actually quite beautiful. So it is
Hmm.
green, we're near the ocean. There's a lot going on there. I think in terms of making cricketers tough, it's probably a consistent theme across all of Australia.
Right.
But out in WA, we're kind of on our own. We don't have too much interaction with the other states unless it's at national carnivals. So the competition does get quite high. And when you have natural competition, you're forced to naturally, I suppose, get tougher and earn your spot.
Right. In the home of fast bowlers, that is Western Australia, how did you become a leg spinner?
That's a good
Did
question. I
did
actually
did you
started
did
off.
you did you take inspiration from Stuart McGill, the lone leg spinner from Western Australia, maybe?
No, well, I actually started off as a pace bowler. So I made my debut for WA bowling medium pace. It wasn't very fast, probably slower than my leg spin sometimes. And what happened is basically as I got older, I didn't really grow too much or get that much stronger. So I'm still 163 centimeters. And my bowling became, as you get older, you need to either be strong or tall or do a lot with the ball. And I didn't have any of those. So I played mainly as a batter, and then I was messing around in the nets one day. I used to have a really good back of the hand slower ball, which turned a little bit like a leg spinner, um, and just literally was messing around and decided it looked all right. We had, because the conditions aren't really suited to spin, there's not many spinners. So in one way, it's a really good way to set yourself apart from everyone else.
Right.
And at that point, I was trying to make my way in the team. So I thought, why not? Let me try leg spin. It's very hard, and I've been bowling for 5 years now, and I think it's only now that I've started to get somewhat consistent. So it is a very difficult art, but it was worth the time.
You when you said you wanted to be a fast bowler, you remind me of many such stories, right? For example, Anil Kumble or Sachin, they all wanted to become this fast bowler, but they ended up becoming something else. Kumble also, if you have observed, followed Anil
Yeah,
Kumble's bowling, he almost bowls at a medium pace, and same is with Shahid Afridi and so on. So, what is your strength? Is that your pace, or is that your variation? What can you tell about your strength in your leg spin bowling?
yeah, definitely my variation. I try and bowl like Kumble and Shade Afridi. I want to. That's my goals, is to be able to bowl that little bit faster. And because we mostly play 2020 cricket and a little bit of 50 over cricket, the ability to bowl fast and into the wicket is really important. The only thing is that I'm not naturally very strong, so I spend a lot of time in the gym trying to get stronger. But so my pace isn't that high, but I do have a lot of variations.
Right.
So my natural ball is actually more of a wrong'un, very similar to
Mm.
Kumble. I bowl wrong'uns, toppies, the other one will spin. And then I've just been developing a slider and a flipper over the off season. So the goal is just to make those more and more consistent. And if I've got, that's plenty of deliveries, and then I should be able to be in a pretty good place to bamboozle some batsmen.
Right. Who was your leg spinning idol growing up? You mentioned Kumble, obviously, and who else did you idolize among the
Oh,
women's cricket as well?
yeah, yeah. I think there's not many. There weren't many female leg spinners when I was growing up. The biggest one was Kristen Beams, who debuted really late, and I probably still idolise her to an extent because she's a really great person as well off the field. She's a great leader. She's worked really hard for a long time in her career, and I think she only made her debut for Australia when she was 30. And she was very simple in her methods, but very, very good at executing them. And that's something that I'd like to be able to do, is just be able to execute really well, work really hard, and then see what happens down the track. In terms of males, I really like all these left arm Brad Hogg, another West Australian. And he's a great guy, a lot of energy,
Yeah,
and I love the shape that he
he
puts
goes
to the
like this,
ball,
right? Yeah, like.
with his tongue out. Yeah. But yeah,
Leg spin is a very tough art, right? So, for example, off spin is very easy to bowl. So, me and my brother, we play our own street cricket, and every time we try to bowl leg spin, it turns out to be a googly because we you have to get a lot of things right, right? Your wrist should face the other way, and it's a lot tougher than off spin, isn't it?
yeah, definitely a lot tougher, and that release point is key. So the ability, because your body, I think the reason it's tough is your body's almost going in opposite motions. So as off spin, everything's going around one way. With leg spin, your body's going this way, but your wrist is going the other way. And to coordinate those with a difficult release, I think that's part of the art though, and that's why,
Right.
like, I think the harder it is to bowl something, the harder it is to face,
Right.
and so you get your reward for putting in the work.
I think is that why leg spinners tend to get shoulder injuries, because your arm is not designed to rotate with your wrist in this position, right? So what as a leg spinner, what do you work out on in the gym? You work on your shoulders. What can you tell a bit about your regime as a leg spinner to avoid injuries,
Yeah,
basically?
so yeah, you bang on. Shoulder strength's massive, and it's the ability to actually, like, you can bowl say 5-10 overs, but to have endurance in your shoulder. So a lot of the smaller muscles I'll do every day. So your rotator cuff and around there. But then a lot of what I do as well, because your force as a legs of any athlete comes from the ground up. So you need to have really strong legs. That's where it starts. The stronger your legs, the more balanced you are, and the more energy you're able to put through the crease. And that's what actually produces the most amount of revs on the ball. So I think the shoulder work, you start there. It's very important to do the small stuff, but the majority comes through your legs and your core. So what I do is I'll be in the gym, because I'm not naturally very strong. I'll be in the gym about 4 days a week, and then on top of that, I do 2 days a week where I break down the movements of bowling, and I do more so using resistance bands, smaller light dumbbells, kettlebells, to like be able to say if I move a dumbbell up towards me and it brings my chest up, like your front arm coming up, and then you do that a few times, and then superset that or alternate with actually bowling. I've only recently started doing specific stuff, and it's made a massive difference.
Right. What is vital? in grooming a young leg spinner, right? So I see kids around my colony, little kids, wonderful turners. But how do you groom them? Because leg spinners tend to get hit a lot, right? Especially in a game like T20, right? They're more likely to miss their length. They end up bowling full tosses, or they end up bowling too short. They tend to get hit a lot, but they also tend to get take more wickets, right? So how do you groom them? How do you encourage them? Mentally keep them in a right space, even if they get hit a lot, right? Can you tell a bit about that, please?
Yeah, you have to change your mindset on what success is. So if you measure your success on wickets taken or dot balls bowled, you're always going to be in trouble as a leg spinner. If you measure because you're going to get hit. And this is pretty much the same in any art. It's just especially important for a leg spinner. So what you have to do is change your mindset to measure yourself, your success on how many times did I do everything that was in my control. So
Right.
if that means it, I would advise a lot of younger leg spinners to sit down and write down as a leg spinner in the upcoming game or training, what are all the things that are 100% in my control? So for example, for me, if I was going to play tomorrow, I know that warming up well is in my control. I know that doing my routine, so making sure my pre-ball routine, and that's the main thing. If I execute my pre-ball routine 6 times in a row, that's a successful day for me. Because sometimes I'll come up against Meg Lanning and she's going to hit my good ball for 6. I can't help that.
Yes.
But if I don't do my routine and I bowl some bad balls and let her hit me for 6 easily, that's failure.
Right.
Does that make sense? So it's
Yep.
changing what your success is.
Right.
So success is doing everything in your control, not
Right.
wickets, not runs. That doesn't matter. That happens naturally.
Right. Right. What is a captain's role in backing a leg spinner? Right. It's like is it fair enough to say that captains make leg spinners as much as leg spinners make themselves? Right. If you chop and change because they got hit, how that's going to affect a person, isn't it?
Yeah, it's massive, especially young or beginner leg spinners. I think that starts to shift as you get more experienced. It was actually something one of my mentors is an Indian guy, Yogesh Golwalkar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know, he a lot of
Ranji player.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, he played Ranji. I
Right.
just can't remember which state. But he's brilliant, and he always said there's 2 people in the team you need to become best friends with. One's the captain, and one's a wicket keeper. And if you
Right.
do those 2 things, it'll make a big difference. And the biggest thing that makes a difference, especially as I was coming through, is it's not just because at the end of the day, you got to win a game of cricket. So you can't just keep the leg spinner on because they're new and you got to give them a chance. It's about where you put the field. So I know when I start, and Shane Warne talks a lot about this, when I start a spell, and it usually takes 1 or 2 overs to get into it, it's just, you don't need to be aggressive straight away. Give yourself protection. So allow yourself to have a deep cover, deep square leg, deep mid wicket, deep long on, or whatever, depending on the batter. Put the fielders out to start, and then as you get into your spell, then you can bring them up. Whereas I think, say, fast bowlers will often do the opposite.
Yeah.
And once the batter gets in, we put the fielder out. I think it's really important. Give yourself protection, because then it's okay. If I drag one short, it's okay. There's protection.
Right.
And it just relaxes you a lot more.
Who is your favorite leg spinner in the women's game right now? And maybe you can include men's as well right now in the current lot.
Yeah, I think Amelia Kerr's pretty special from New Zealand. She turns the ball both ways, has a really good wrong un. And I think from memory, she's the only one that's genuinely ripping it both ways at the moment, which is what we see is really successful in the men's game. So she's really special. She's only 19, 20. She can bat as well. She's made a double 100 already for New Zealand.
I know.
She's a really exciting talent. And then closer to home, Georgia Wareham, who plays with me in the Victorian squad, she's exceptional as well. And you just watch her flow. Again, a youngster. She's only 20, 21. She's already miles better than I am. And she's pretty special. In terms of the men's game, I love watching. Oh, there's so many. I've watched them all. I think Yasir Shah, his energy through the crease is unbelievable. And then I also like, there's a left-hander, what's his name? Yadav.
Kuldeep Yadav.
Kuldeep Yadav, that's it. He's pretty cool to watch too.
Right. You know who my favorites are in women's game? I remember watching Amelia Kerr's YouTube video when she was 15 when she made the debut, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh yeah, I was munching chocolates when I was 15, and to see this little girl ball at the age of 15. And I also love Poonam Yadav from India, who almost won India the World Cup in the T20 this year, right? So these are my two favorites among the women. Um, you're a decent batsman yourself, right? I saw your video on Crick Info, and that's how I got interested to connect with you on this podcast, right? You're a decent batsman yourself, and you whack it quite nicely.
Yeah, actually, I think I'm more of a batter than I am a bowler.
Hmm.
So that's pretty much what I've grown up. I think leg spin was something I took up later in my career to help me get into some teams, and the love of it has slowly grown. Whereas batsman, since I started, I've loved it. It's
Right.
it's been number one. Spent a lot of time. I could hit balls for days. It doesn't matter what's happening. I just got to find someone with a shoulder or someone to feed me in the bowling machine, and I'm quite happy.
Right. All those crisp shots that you play in the nets, like they connect very well in the nets and you feel good, but it's a different ball game in the match, isn't it? Because the mental side of it kicks in, and can you talk about the difference there, if you can, please?
Oh yeah, huge difference. I think it's different forms of training. So you've got to be able to train yourself both on a mental point of view. You've got to challenge yourself at training, but then another part of training is also to do your basics over and over again. So that video up on the Cricket Mentoring Instagram, that session, the goal was to do my basics and do them really well. So when you're doing your basics, what I often do is take away the difficulty, because I want to groove a nice swing and not have to think about it too much. But I'll do that about 20-30% of the time. The other 60-70% is about challenging myself. And that's how that process gets into a game. So I'll either have the coach throwing, wanging, or face bowlers. We'll set a scenario up which challenges that mental side of the game to be able to stick to your routine and actually execute under pressure. So although it looks good, as you say, it's very difficult. There's a big difference. It's just about being intentional about why you're training or what you're training.
Right. I think I once heard, I don't know who said this. One expert say that you have to make your net session tougher than your match, so that when you go to the match, it becomes a little easier. So I suppose that makes sense. You are a coach yourself, right? So do you train little girls any differently than you would train little boys on how to hit hard? Like how do you train a young girl to hit, like maybe Smriti Mandana or Doughton or Danny Watt or Meg Lanning or something like that? Is there any difference that you do when it comes to hard hitting training in terms of boys and girls?
Not too much when they're younger. I'm very, very simple in my batting philosophies, and that has changed. So initially, I used to teach everyone like your normal high front elbow shots, your pull and your cut. Now it's completely different. It's about hitting the ball hard, as you say. So your only job as a batter, male or female, doesn't matter, is to go to the line of the ball and hit the ball back where it came from.
Right.
So if you go to the line of the ball, what happens is you create space to hit the ball. So I call it the matrix or your bubble in front of you. And then what happens is you can drive your hands straight through the line of the ball. Male, female, no different. The only thing that changes as you get older is that males have more pace on the ball. So they've got to be able to get back a lot more. Especially if that ball's coming at your head, you can't just pull off the front foot all the time. Whereas in the women's game, 95% of the time, you don't really need to go onto the back foot as much. So you can afford to press forward a bit more. The other thing is that if you've got anyone that's a bit shorter, it's more to do with the dimensions rather than pure strength. So like for me, I'm quite short. So I'll play, like you saw in that video, a lot more of a baseball style,
Yep.
where my front leg is straight. Whereas if you're tall, like someone like Elise Perry, she can play a more traditional style of swing. So it's more so for the person that's in front of me, what is the swing that suits them the best? Some might have played hockey, some might play golf. The different sports actually influence your best swing. So it's just taking one person at a time and saying, what does your best swing look like? And let's model your game around that.
Who are your favorite hitters around the women's game as an inspiration?
Favorite hitters, you can't go past Sophie Devine. She can whack them. I really like the young one from India, Verma.
Shefali.
She's very exciting, Shefali Verma. And the other one who's sometimes not regarded as a hitter, but it's Meg Lanning. She still plays classic cricket shots, but she's exceptionally got unbelievable hands. See, it doesn't even look like she's trying to hit the ball, and next thing you know, it's gone for 6. So
Right.
she's good to watch as well.
You know who you missed? I love Deandra Doughton from West Indies as well. The opener, yeah. They call her the Lady Chris Gale for some reason.
Yeah, I think she calls herself that, to be honest.
Yeah, right. You also played for Perth Scorchers, right? In the women's Big Bash. How many matches did you play? What was your experience like? Can you tell a bit about that place?
Yeah, so I missed out on the Perth Scorchers squad for 4 years in a row. So I was basically the next person in, and I'd always go and netball or be around the squad, but never actually in it. And then in that 4th year, unfortunately, one of our bowlers got an injury, and I managed to get the call up. So I was an injury replacement player. I only ended up playing 4 games, but I was in the squad for every game that season, and it was one of the best experiences of my life, because a lot of people do say that Big Bash, the standard of cricket is actually higher than a lot of international cricket outside of your big nations. So, and you could tell the difference between our normal state competition to Big Bash. It was just significantly better, more intense. There's a lot more distractions as well. So there's half the games are televised, there's crowds, there's just a lot more going on, which you can never really train for. You have to just experience it when you experience it. And I suppose it's similar to, say, Ranji Trophy versus IPL. So when it's IPL, it's just crazy. Obviously, we're nowhere near that level, but it's the same concept where you have to learn different skills. But yeah, it was a great opportunity, and I'm hoping to be able to sneak back in at one stage.
Who did you get your cap from? Do you have a cap giving ceremony or something like that?
Yeah, I got it from Nicole Bolton, and she's one of my best friends.
Your opener?
That was pretty. Sorry?
The opener of Perth?
Yeah. So she opens batting. She played a fair few games for Australia as well. And yeah, she's one of my best friends, and she's been helping me out on and off the field for a number of years. So that was really special. She probably is the one person that knew how hard I'd worked to actually get there. And yeah, it was really nice. She said some really kind words, and it's something I'll never forget.
Right. You know who I love in your squad? I love your captain, Meg Lanning. I think she has the best slog sweep in women's game. Her slog sweeps are spot on, and they would be sixes in any ground. And what a clean striker of the ball, right?
Yeah, it's her hockey. I think it's her hockey background.
Mm-hmm.
Funnily enough, she's that good naturally that she doesn't even realize. She couldn't tell you how she does it. A lot of the times we were practicing sweeps together a couple of weeks ago, and she said, "Oh, I'm just not comfortable sweeping. It's not my preferred shot." And I just looked at her and said, "You're one of the best sweepers I know." And so she's actually that good. She doesn't think about the game too much. She just trusts her instincts. And she played a lot of hockey growing up, so I think that's where that quick hands and that slog sweep comes into it.
Don't you think it's the same case with, I think, Ross Taylor from New Zealand, right? He sweeps hard.
Yeah,
he goes really hard at the ball. Yeah, it's the same case with Meg Lanning. What will it mean for women's game if they have a women's IPL?
Oh, it'll completely change the game. That's exactly what they need. It's what we need, I should say. There's no secret. India rule the cricket economy, and they rule the cricket world. That's where all the finances come from, and it's not just about money as well. It's exposure, and particularly for me, I've got Indian grandparents. Still maintain the Indian culture in my family right through to now. To be able to see more girls inspired to play is the ultimate goal for me. So yes, the financial side and the recognition is huge, but if we can start changing the mindset of your old school traditional Indians around females shouldn't play, it's not what it's there for, the cricket's rubbish, all the old school mindsets, and allow if you want to play cricket, go and play. Encourage people to play. If you don't, that's okay. It's irrelevant. If you want to be an actor, go be an actor. I think because cricket's a religion in India, it is a really good module to start to put away with those old mindsets about females not being useful, and it's a really powerful way to actually inspire the next generation. It's not just cricket, it's to do whatever they love, and that's the end game, I think.
Okay. I think one more thing is it opens a new career path that has not been open for Indian women for a long time, isn't it? Just the response for those 2-3 matches that they play before the men's IPL, right? It has this huge response, and I can only imagine what women's IPL will do to the women's game, isn't it?
Oh, it's
It
huge.
yeah. It coming from the Indian family, as you said yourself, you will understand that. You also play for Western Australia, right? Which means you play at WACA, right?
Yep.
How sad that Test cricket is not happening at WACA, the fastest pitch in the world. Do you feel the sense of history when you walk into that ground, the ground where Langer came from, the ground from Danes Lily came from? Do you feel the sense of history? Are you like overwhelmed at times?
Yeah, like growing up at the WACA was unbelievable. Basically, it's a stunning ground. It's still maintained a lot of its tradition. So if you walk through the change rooms and up in the players area, they've got the team of the century. You've got all the legends photos, your old boards, similar to what they have at Lords, about
Yep.
people that have made hundreds, fifers. So it's very special, and it's still, I think it'll always be my favourite ground in the world, purely because I've grown up there, and the conditions. It's fast outfield. The pitch, to be honest, at the WACA had gotten slower over the years.
Which is very
Never
sad, but
watching the next game. Yeah, so it was never the same as it was in the 80s and 90s, from what I hear.
right.
It became quite flat and easier to bat on. Still faster than most of your wickets on the eastern states and in the world, to be fair. So if someone from away from WA came, they would think it's fast and bouncy. But for us, it became flatter. And Optus Stadium, to be fair, it is sharp. It is very fast and very bouncy, and definitely more so than the WACA at the moment. But it doesn't have that same feeling, that
Yeah.
tradition and that history as the WACA does.
Right. Right. I cannot let you go without touching about the women's T20 World Cup that happened in Australia. Who are you supporting in the final?
I was torn between two. Like, I think I've grown up in Australia. I've only ever been to India once. But knowing that, so I'll be honest, because I initially wanted India to win, because I wanted India to get more recognition at home and to be able to get up a women's IPL, and for the greater good of the game. Australia's won a lot. The second part of me was thinking, geez, this was unbelievable to have 90,000 people at the MCG, or almost there. I was at the game, and it was just incredible. I think there were a fair few people crying in the crowd out of pure joy of seeing how far the game had come, and it felt like it's right that Australia capped it off. And I was actually happier in the end that Australia won in such a comprehensive fashion, because there are some parts that India don't do well. So they don't do the professionalism well. They don't do, like, I'm talking at a domestic level. So there are enough funds there to put into domestic cricket. There are, as you say, the IPL, whether it's 50 over cricket, academies. Australia put the investment in before they knew they'd get money back.
Right.
So they took a risk and actually helped people like myself get paid some money to be able to train well, and therefore I don't have to work full time. And India have the money to do it, but they're not doing it.
Right.
So I was actually quite happy that Australia won so comprehensively in a pressure environment, because it showed the difference. It wasn't in talent. That Indian team is unbelievable. We saw them at the start. Poonam Yadav ripped through Australia. You've got Mandana, Kaur, like just magical players. But the difference, I think, was laid bare in the
Right.
professionalism.
Right.
And hopefully,
You know what that final felt like? That felt like 2003 World Cup final when I was a little boy watching India was Australia at Johannesburg. I don't know if you watched that game. Australia ripped India's bowling apart, batting first. Ponting hit 140 odd, and we got out very quickly. It was so nostalgic, and it was very sad. But you know what you said. I wanted India to win, not just because I am an Indian. Nothing will take off unless India embraces it. Right. For example, I always believe that 2007 T20 World Cup, if India had not won that, IPL would have not started. if right,
Yeah.
it's like if India had won the World Cup, it will gather the momentum, right, for the women's IPL, and that is the exact reason why I wanted India to win, because Indian men have won enough. I mean, they are sorted,
Yeah.
right? I really want the women's game to get sorted, and I really thought this World Cup will. And this was very disappointing. And even the 2017 final, the match that they had in their hands, they lost to England. I don't know if you remember this Women's World Cup with India was England,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I do.
Yeah. Uh, was that the biggest day for women's cricket? That World Cup final on the Women's Day, 90,000 people in the crowd, Katy Perry performing. I believe Lisa Sthalekar was in tears. That's
Yeah.
what I saw from the TV. How was the experience at the ground?
Oh, it was unbelievable. It is something I never thought I'd ever be a part of in any way. And it was the same with the players. And it was that feeling of it wasn't about the result as much. It wasn't about winning. It wasn't about ruthlessness. It was just about being together as a cricket community and as a female community. And I think that's where you saw like Lisa Sthalekar, who's put in so many years into cricket, just completely break down at how magnificent the occasion was.
Right, right. You grew up in an Indian family, right? So how was it convincing your family to get into the sporting career, right? So was it supportive, or was it did you have any struggles over there? And do you understand the struggles that Indian women go through in India to get into a sport like cricket?
Yeah, I was extremely lucky in that my dad was supportive from day one. He's massive into his sport. He could see that. He said I was born kicking a ball, so he could see that it was my passion. And I never had any resistance from him. My mum is always supported me, but would always make sure like I need to study. You need to be doing all the things outside, which I like at the time you get annoyed at her, but I know that's just as important. One thing I had got coming to India with cricket mentoring last year opened my eyes a lot to the Indian, like how restricted females are. I always had a sense for it, even in our wider family friends in Perth, in the Indian community, of how restricted a lot of their mindsets are. And that used to really annoy me. But seeing it in India, and it was even worse. And people, for example, we had one girl who she was unbelievable. She had off spinner, had all these variations. I had no idea which way the ball was turning. And I'm playing with the best in the world here. And I was like, why are you not playing for India, or at least in academy squads? And she says, my dad doesn't want me to. I have to stop soon because I'm going to uni. And I just couldn't believe, like, she would definitely walk into an Indian team. Like, she was that good. But parents won't let her. There was her last year of cricket and she had to go to uni. That was crazy.
Where were you in India? Mumbai?
Uh, at KIOC in Karnataka. So in
Oh,
Bangalore.
Bangalore. I'm from Bangalore.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, I saw your
Yeah,
hat on.
right. What
Yeah.
did you? Big fan. RCB, yeah. Right. You're from Gujarat family, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. One last question. There are some talks about
Uh-huh.
changing the women's game a bit, like bringing changes to make the women's game more exciting, like making the ground smaller, making the pitch smaller. These changes are taking into the account that women's game is not as fast as men's game. Where do you stand on that? What's your opinion on that? Do you feel the need to change anything in women's game to make it more exciting?
I'm 50-50. I really like the idea of trying new things. I wouldn't go straight to putting it into actual tournaments, maybe some exhibition matches as a trial. I think what you'll see though is that natural transition of the women's game getting better and hitting harder. So firstly, the ball's already smaller and the ground's already smaller. Will come with the professionalism, and we've already seen it. So you've got someone like Taylor Vlamic or the South African Shabman Ismail, who are pushing that 130 mark. And if you like looking at the next generation coming through, I genuinely think you'll have your fast bowlers will consistently hit that 130 mark because they're getting really good.
Right.
Batters are getting really strong. So this next generation are getting more athletic. So I actually think it'll come down to putting more money into the game so people can train harder, and therefore the product will be better.
Right. I believe women's game is just one Indian World Cup win away from exploding. That will increase the that will increase the pool of women getting into the cricket, and that will increase the talent that will come out, and you will start seeing more fast bowlers, more skilled leg spinners, and I cannot wait to see that day. I cannot wait to see you get into Australian colours, or maybe if women's IPL happen, you come down to India and have a chat like a celebrity with me. But all the very best for your all the very best for your career. It was fantastic talking to you. I'm very glad, as I said before, that you're my first professional cricketer on my podcast. It is a great chat. I hope you have broken some stereotypes among our listeners and viewers who would listen to you talk about the game in such a wonderful and detailed way. Do you have any message, a parting message in the lines of encouraging people to watch women's game and encourage it a little more?
Yeah, I'd say for the little girls out there, just give it a crack, have a go, enjoy it. And more importantly, for those that support them, actually do that. So let's support them. Let's encourage females to play or do what they love. So if they don't want to play cricket, play another sport, play music, the ultimate goal is to let people be their best selves. And let's try as a community, use cricket as a way of showing that we can do that, and that's possible.
That is a fantastic note to end this podcast. Thank you very much, listeners and viewers, for joining us and giving it a listen. Till we see you next time. That's it from this podcast. Bye, everyone.